What if? What if time? We've reached chapter 20 of What Ifs, and we're going right to South Bend, Indiana to start it tonight. Hey, what if Notre Dame just makes the playoff? That's what AJ wants to know. What if the Irish make the playoff? And producer Jesse, we're putting this together today, and Jesse said, hey, what if Notre Dame makes the playoff and they face LSU? And then I come in and I say, well, let me do you one better. What if the playoff was Notre Dame versus LSU and USC versus Oklahoma? There are people who have never watched a college football game in their lives that just watch daytime soap operas and dramas that would come to college football playoff tables for that. So anyway, that's not what AJ suggested. I just went down a rabbit hole there. They could be. Notre Dame could be the college football playoff havoc team this year. Now, they got an over-under win total of 8.5. They're plus 750 in odds to make the college football playoff. But if they do actually make it, who were the victims? There have to be multiple victims here. Remember, and you need to plug your ears for a second. Those of you who don't think they play a tough schedule, plug your ears. Dirty talk here, immunity. They play Ohio State. Did they beat the Buckeyes? They play USC at home. Did they beat the Trojans? They go to Clemson. Did they beat Clemson? Did they beat all three of them? Even if they just beat 2 of 3. Think how big a deal that is. They got 2 of the 3 at home, by the way. And so we find ourselves there. If they're in the playoff, we find ourselves with Marcus Freeman having stock just go through the roof. We find Sam Hartman, dare I say, possibly maybe in the Heisman conversation. I'd have to think so if they're in the playoff. And dude, I don't know that I could put in strong enough terms how high America would be on Marcus Freeman if Notre Dame makes the playoff in year 2 for him. And it's just a bonus if LSU's there. I can't even imagine. What do you think Brian Kelly would be asked at Media Day? I don't know. I can't even imagine. Next up, now this one's wild. This is not a bold prediction, but it is a what if. Cody said, what if Travis Hunter is an all-conference player on both sides of the ball? So Travis Hunter, remember, number 1 player in America in 2022's recruiting cycle. He was the number 1 player in the transfer portal, leaving Jackson State, followed Dion to Colorado. Probably going to play both ways this year. Now, if you tell me he's all Pac-12 at corner, not only am I not surprised, I expect it, actually. But you tell me he's going both ways all conference, that I don't think that's happening. And I don't think it's happening because I don't think he's a good enough receiver in a conference that deep at receiver. This is not 3A ball in Connecticut. And this is a great player. Travis Hunter's a great player. But to do that stuff at the college level, quote unquote, even in the Pac-12, I got more respect for the conference than some of you do this year, at least. I don't think that's going to happen. So if this were a bold prediction, it would be like a 9.9. But if anyone's going to do it, you're probably looking at the player there because I don't think any other player is going to have the opportunity to do it. Next up, we're going to Manhattan, Kansas. What if, and that's the name of the game here, of course, Sean asks, what if Kansas State goes back-to-back as Big 12 champ? Well, Chris Kleiman would be a rock star, kind of already is to some people out there. He would get a couple of looks. The first look he would get is maybe his own statue in the not-too-distant future in Manhattan, Kansas. And the other look he would get would be from major programs. He just signed a new deal. That never stops anyone. So that's on the personal front for Kleiman. But also, think about where Kansas State would be. They're a back-to-back Big 12 champ, and then Texas and OU leave. And so in the question or the conversation of who's going to be the alpha dog out here after those two leave, well, maybe they were right in front of your eyes the whole time. Maybe it's that purple and white team there in Kansas. Also, let's not overlook this year. If they win the conference, are they in the playoff? Is Kansas State in the playoff? And if they are, then you start to ask yourself, how valuable was that beatdown they toted at the hands of Alabama in the Sugar Bowl last year? Because we've seen teams that get run when they play those elite rosters, but it benefits them in the future. Well, if Kansas State finds themselves in the playoff or a playoff picture again this year, maybe there was a positive that came from an otherwise negative afternoon there in New Orleans. And lastly, in the way of what-ifs tonight, this would be a mess in the Big Ten, and I could see this happening too. Rico said, what if Michigan's 11-1, but they don't make the Big Ten title game? I wonder who they lost to. Did they lose to Ohio State? Did they make it undefeated all the way to rivalry week and lose to Ohio State? Did they go to Penn State and lose? I got to think that's where one of the losses, or the only loss, came from. I mean, all due respect to Rutgers, I don't think the Fighting Lance Waynes are going in there in week 4 and taking down Michigan. So, there's this world out there. I had a dream, because I'm the kind of person who dreams about this stuff. I had a dream not too long ago that we had Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan all finish 11-1 in this round robin where they all lose to each other. And maybe that's what happened here. So Michigan 11-1, they don't go to the Big Ten title game. The obvious follow-up is, well, do they make the playoff anyway? And I hear a lot of you screaming right now, absolutely not. They can't make the playoff because, as you can see on the screen here, Director Colin has provided a helpful graphic. Those numbers over there to the right, those are the preseason over-under win totals for the teams on Michigan's schedule. Here's what it sounds like. 5.5, 5.5, 4.5, 3.5, 6.5, 7.5, 3.5, 5.5, 5.5, 9.5, 7.5, 10.5. So their 3 toughest games, at least 3 of the 4, are right at the end of the year. But really, you got 2 teams with a preseason win total over 8, and that's Penn State and Ohio State. If they lose to one of them, how strong is that schedule? Because you don't have a conference championship under your belt in this scenario, and so it's no slam dunk they're in the playoff if that happens.